Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be watching from, and welcome to AMN Healthcare International's live show, Onwards and Upwards, where we discuss. That's right. This is Onwards and Upwards, where we discuss everything a global healthcare worker needs to know about living and working in the United States. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, everybody. My name is Danielle Friedman. I will be your host today, and I am coming to you live from San Diego, California, where AMN Healthcare is headquartered. If you are joining us for the first time, welcome. If you are a regular, welcome. Thank you for sticking with us and learning with us as we do our weekly shows. We are so happy to have you all here today. AMN Healthcare is the largest provider of international staffing and international direct hire positions all across the United States. So if you are inspired by our show today and you would like to reach your American dream, we are going to drop the link in the chat. That link to apply is amnhealthcare.com/international, and our recruiters are on hand, ready, and waiting to help you reach your American dreams. Today, we have a special show. We are going to be talking about a topic that gets a lot of attention, but we are going to be doing a deep dive. Coming up today, we're going to be talking about Recapture Your Opportunity, how to turn setbacks into success. So we're going to be talking all about priority dates, recaptures, rescissions, all of these different terms that you've probably seen pop up. We would love you to put your questions and comments in the chat. We love to see where everybody is joining from. I know we have viewers from all over the world, which I love to see. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to Gladys in the Philippines, Puli in England, Ngozi in Nigeria, Mohammed in London, Longale joining from South Africa, a fellow countryman of mine. I'm also from South Africa. Hello to you. Anson from Kenya. Thank you all for joining us this morning. And please don't forget to put your questions and comments in the chat. So without further ado, let's bring out our guests for today's show.
Good morning, Danielle. How are you?
I am doing well. Good morning. How are you both?
Doing good.
Looks like we can see Ed and we can see Mark, and there we can see Mohammed. Thank you all for being here with me today. I am very excited to hear all about your journeys, your expertise. So let's do a little bit of introductions and background so that our viewers can get to know you. Ed, why don't we start with you?
My name's Ed Scornia. I'm the Senior Director of Operations and Technology at AMN Healthcare International. I am an engineer by background and specialize in business. I've been in the healthcare industry with staffing for over 25 years.
Lots of experience. For those of you who are watching, Ed is usually my go-to when I have any questions about literally anything. He knows everything. So I am very excited that he's joining us today. He has a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge to share. So if you have any questions for Ed, please put them in the chat and we will be asking him. All right, Mark, let's hear your background and story next, please.
Hello, everyone. Across the globe, I'm Mark Garvin Newmang. I'm happily married to my God-fearing wife, Zendi, and blessed with two beautiful daughters, Ziana and Minea. I'm a proud USRN, entrepreneur, a Bible-believing Christian, and a keynote speaker. As a registered nurse from the Philippines, I've lived my dream here in the US, and now I'm on a mission to empower others to do the same. Thank you.
I love that, Mark. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit about your family, and we look forward to hearing more about your journey to becoming a USRN. Mohammed, let's hear you go next.
Hello, my name is Mohammed Al Zgoul, and thanks for having me here. I'm originally from Jordan. I came from UAE. And I have 3 kids, and my wife is here as well.
I lost you there for a second, Mohammed, which I don't know if that's my internet or yours, but I heard the important part. You have 3 kids and a beautiful wife who is there as well. So we look forward to hearing about your journey. I heard you're from Jordan, and we look forward to hearing all about how you came to the US and what you are doing now. So today's show, we're going to be focusing on recaptures, decisions, topics that kind of make your heart a little skip a beat. It can be a little bit scary. I know Mark is going like this. He probably, as he has lived this experience, knows exactly what that feels like. But before we dive into what all of that looked like for all of you and what all of that means, I'd love to find out what today is possible for you. Let's focus on the positive and where you are today. You're both USRNs. Mark, can you tell me a little bit about what it's like today, where you live, how it feels to be a USRN?
Okay, life has been amazing. I'm grateful for this opportunity, and it's very fulfilling. It's been a big adjustment, but I'm loving every minute of it. So being a healthcare professional in the US is a valued profession here, and it is clear that my skills are appreciated and needed, and so are yours. More so, I like the principle here of what they call a work-life balance. So especially here in my place in Jackson, Mississippi, it's very wonderful place to live in. So I'd like to invite the international nurses as well to come over here in Mississippi to practice your profession.
Thank you, Mark, for sharing that. I think you touched on something we're definitely going to talk about later in the show, what it's like to be a USRN and that work-life balance and why that's so important and how US nurses are really valued. I think that's something that's very important to keep in mind as some of our nurses are watching and thinking about going on their own journey. So it sounds like Mark came over from the Philippines and is now living in Mississippi. So Mohammed, can you tell us a little bit about what your journey was like and where you are living and working today?
So it have been a long journey until I came here, but it have been like nice journey as well. And I'm enjoying life here. I'm enjoying life, work-life balance. It have been really great journey, and that at the end, it's really worth it. And I believe everybody have to try and keep on and patience. And at the end, you will be here, and it's really worth it. And it's gonna be a good.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing, Mohammed. So I hear you're both living your dream. You're both on the other side of this. You've come to America. You're now working in the US. And for a little bit of background, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Mark, you started out on a direct hire journey, and then you ended up switching to a staffing journey, and now you are working a staffing contract in Mississippi. And Mohammed, you started out on a direct hire journey. Your employer rescinded your contract, and then you found another direct hire employer, correct? I think that sounds correct. I see everybody kind of shaking their head like this. And I think what these two stories really go to show is that sometimes your journey is not always a straight line. It's not always going to be this step and then the next step after. I see Mark kind of going like this. Sometimes you're going to have some twists and some turns. And I think that's very common. A journey is not always a straight line. Why is that more common than nurses can think? Ed, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, if you think about it, there's a lot of things that have to come together, right? The main thing is we've got an immigration path, and then they also have a relationship with the facility. So immigration-wise, we know there's a lot of things happening with, the bans, the pauses, the different parts of the immigration process. And the main one really is the visa bulletin advancement. The visa bulletin advancing slower creates a longer time frame, right? So if you think about it, years ago, it took maybe 12 to 14, 15 months to come to the United States. Now it's taken about 3 years. And in a 3-year time period, a lot of things can happen. So I think that's where the complexity comes in. With the individuals, people have certain circumstances in their life that change. The immigration process is changing and evolving. And then the hospital's needs are also changing. So that causes the complexity. I think we have 2 successful nurses in front of us that have made it through the end. For me, if I summarize what I think is the most important thing is keep the vision of, I want to come to the US, I want the green card, I want to be a USRN, and the time frame might not be ideal for me, but I'm going to make that. And how do I make that successful in the journey, even if there is something called the rescission of my job offer?
I think that's a very good way of putting it, Ed. I see Mark kind of shaking his head like this. I think he agrees. I want to dive in a little bit deeper, and I want to understand, what is a rescission? Ed, can you tell us a little bit more about what is that and why does that happen?
Yeah, a rescission is you have a job offer from an employer, and the employer decides that they no longer want to have you employed with them for a variety of reasons. And the reasons could really be because of what's happening in the healthcare industry right now. A lot of hospitals are focused on profitability. They're focused on making sure that they service their patients at the right level, et cetera. And when there's a delay in the process from an immigration standpoint, they don't have the predictability of the staffing being available when they need it, right? So if they think you're going to arrive at a certain date and you're delayed for a year, they typically cannot wait all the time for that. And they might have alternate pathways to hire, whether it's new grads, whether it's travelers, whether they go ahead and hire directly locally. There's a lot of things that they need to do because they need to go ahead and have the staffing levels available when they need them. So that's part of the complexity that forces companies to go ahead and look at changing their commitments to the individuals with their job offers.
So I think what I'm hearing, Ed, is a lot of these factors are something that nurses can't necessarily control. It's not necessarily based on the nurse's performance when a rescission happens. Would you say that's right?
Absolutely. It's most of it is not, because what happens is, again, if they don't have a need for the individual, if their budget changes, if they have, in the healthcare industry, a lot of the needs at the hospital are shifting to outpatient, so they don't need the same acute care staff levels that they had in the past. There are some things that are controllable by the nurse. We've had some rescissions because people didn't complete their English on time, or they had multiple attempts in English and didn't pass that. So there is a responsibility also from the nurse's standpoint, of the clinician, to stay actively involved. Some of them have left the bedside, and the employers do not like that. And then, again, if you don't have current experience when you come here, it doesn't align. But most of it is going to be, again, if you stay strong with your skill set and you are staying close to the hospital and the immigration process, you will be able to go ahead and work through the process.
Thank you, Ed. I think that's some good advice and some good background just for nurses who are hearing this word and know that it can feel scary. It can feel almost like a big bomb is dropped on you. It's like, oh my God, my journey is different from what I thought was going to happen. I see Mark kind of smiling like this. Mark, you had a similar situation. You were on a journey and then your contract was rescinded. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that felt? And how AMN supported you through that journey, what it looked like for you?
Yes. At first, when I hear about that, it was a shock to me. I had set my mind that we were about to leave very soon from my home country and was preparing to move to the US. But it was a tough pill to swallow. I felt lost, but I never gave up. Instead, I focused on exploring other options and staying positive. So I thought my chance to work in the US was made harder because of it and have to start all over again. But I reminded myself that setbacks are just often opportunities for something better. So I chose to see it as a chance to explore other avenues and make that dream happen. And glad thing AMN is there to catch me up.
Well, that definitely warms my heart. That's what we want to do for you. We want to be there for you, especially in the good times and in the times where, it might be a struggle. And like you said, hearing that moment when you were preparing and then you got rescinded, I'm sure that was a big shock, but you were able to stay positive, explore other options, and now here you are. So that's pretty amazing. Mohammed, can you tell us a little bit about what your experience was like when you found out that your contract was rescinded and AMN helped you get recaptured? And I see we have another fellow U.S. U.S. green card holder. Hello. Welcome to the show. Who do we have here? Oh, you're on mute, Mohammed. I think this is one of Mohammed's 3 kids that he traveled here with. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. This is Ahmed.
Hello, Ahmed. How do you like living in the United States? Well, hopefully Ahmed is doing some fun stuff living in the U.S., getting to play some fun sports, hanging out with some new friends. That's exciting. So, Mohammed, I wanted to ask you about that moment when you found out that your contract had been rescinded and AMN helped you to get recaptured. Can you tell us a little bit more about that journey and how that felt?
Yeah, actually, this was when we got the news about the contract and the rescission. It was really overwhelming. So it's once we get the news, it's like we didn't know what to do. And at that time, you feel like hopeless, and you don't know what to do. And in that moment, I really thanks Aaron for that they gave us the knowledge and the next steps, and they assured us about it's not like we know, it's not like the myths that is around that it's over. No, you can continue and you can find another employer, and you can continue with the same process and with the same it just a little delay, but you go to the next.
Looks like
That's the AMN when they assured us and they gave us the direction about the next steps. So it's have been a great.
Looks like we lost Mohammed a little bit there, in and out, but there is something that he said that really struck a chord for me. He said that moment that he found out, he felt hopeless and helpless. And I'm sure for a lot of you that are imagining this happening, or maybe it's happened to you, you felt something similar. It can be a very scary moment, not knowing where you're going to go, what your journey is going to look like. And as we said, sometimes it's not always a straight line, but having that happen to you can feel very scary in that moment. I'm glad to hear that Mohammed was able to find another position. He felt supported by AMN. We were able to help him find another employer, and now here he is in the US. But I think, Mohammed is touching on something that's very important. And Ed, I'd love to get your take on this. With both Mohammed and Mark, they had to be a little bit flexible as they were coming to the US. Mark switched from a direct hire employer to a staffing employer. Mohammed was able to continue with another direct hire employer. Why might a nurse consider going from one side to another? And why is it so important for a nurse to be flexible if something like this does happen to them? What advice would you have, Ed?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're at the point where we talk to a lot of nurses, so we understand the emotional issues that they're facing. It's shocking. A lot of them need a day or two to think about it. So it's something that they basically lose confidence on, and they don't have a understanding of their pathway. The thing to realize is companies like ours, we're the experts. We're the experts on the industry. We have great relationships with the physicians. So what you want to do is you want to align yourself with a trusted partner, somebody that can help you. You're not going to figure it out on your own. You're not going to be emotionally strong enough on your own unless you have confidence in someone to go ahead and help you on the journey. So we can go ahead and do that. And I think having the guidance with a company is something that is reassuring. And it also is something that will go ahead and help you step by step to continue to move forward. And again, once this happens to you, connect with us, either the recruitment team or your case specialist or somebody, and we can provide you the proper guidance.
Thank you, Ed. I think that's a good thing to keep in mind when something like this may pop up for you. And I think, as always, if you're ever concerned about something like this happening, you want to talk to your support team. Here at AMN, you have a full support team when you're going through that journey, and they can help you navigate, guide you, help you figure out, what could be your next steps. And I think that's so important. You want to know that when you're coming, you're making such a big transition, especially like Mohammed and Mark made with their families, that you are working with a company that you can trust. I think that's very important. Ed, did you have something else to share? I feel like you got something on the tip of your tongue. I can see it.
I do. Again, I just want to go ahead and plug, the company AMN Healthcare International. We've got a lot of options. So when you look at, what are my choices? We've got a pathway that's called staffing or temp to perm with our clients that you can immediately get refiled. And in there, you don't have a specific job assignment yet, but you're back in the process because your employer is O'Grady Payton International, which is part of AMN Healthcare International. So with O'Grady Payton, you continue on your process. They actually are your employer, and you'll have a 2 or 3 year assignment at a facility. So that's a great option to continue very quickly to get back in the process. If you want a specific direct hire opportunity, then we go ahead and have to find the specific sponsor. It takes a little bit longer to do that. And again, at that point, we want to make sure that we have the right alignment. So there's a couple of different pathways. I think we've got the most options for you and can get you not only on the right path, but on the right path very quickly.
Which I think is important in a process that is already very long. You want to make sure that you are getting started, getting filed. You want to recapture that priority date as soon as possible. So with AMN, as Ed said, we have both options for you. Whether you're going to come staffing like Mark did or direct hire like Mohammed did, you too can be here in the United States. So I do see that we have some questions in the chat, and I want to make sure that we're getting to those. So thank you to everybody who's putting your questions. I'm watching and I appreciate them. I see that Dino and Shirley have questions about vacancies for dialysis nurses, and they're asking where they can see our jobs. So to Dino and Shirley, please apply on our website. That's amnhealthcare.com/international. We are looking for all nurses in all specialties for both our direct hire and staffing arms, and our recruiters will reach out with the available positions if you qualify. So please apply today, and we would love to help you. Ed, I do see a question directed for you from Poo Lee. Poo Lee says, hi, Ed. Do you see any significant improvement with regard to the process and timeline from an average of 3 years as of today, retrogression-wise? So you've been doing this for a long time, Ed. You've seen a few things. I think a few years ago, things looked a little bit different. A few years back, they looked a little similar than they do today. I'm just kind of curious, what words of advice would you give to somebody who's considering going on this journey and is now feeling like, I don't know if this is the right thing for me. The timing's kind of long. What words of advice do you have?
Yeah, the advice when you're taking a long journey is going to be you got to start. You got to take some steps forward. The thing that's not controllable is the timeline. My guess, and the experts that we have, our attorneys, are that it's going to be about the same time period or maybe slightly longer as we move forward. So right now it's about 3 years. It might stay around 3 years, might go up a few months. But the main thing is it's not short term. But if you don't start the journey, you'll never finish. So you've got to start. And if you look back in your life, 3 years ago or 5 years ago, time goes by very quickly. It seems like it goes by slow, but if you look back, it always goes by quickly. So take the first step, get started, and don't just sit around. Use that time to go ahead and sharpen your skills, get some experience, save some money. And before you know it, it'll be your turn to be in the queue to go ahead and be processed and get yourself to the embassy. So start the journey.
Good advice, Ed. Very important. We talk about that all the time on the show, whether you're joining for the first time or you are a regular. You know that we say the first step is getting started. Get your place in line, whether that means a new filing, a recapture. Get started. Get started on that journey, and you will get here.
Get started.
I do see quite a few questions about who we may be able to assist. When does a priority date get approved? Questions like that. So I think right now is a good time for us to turn to a little game that we have prepared. I know when you hear the words rescission, recapture, I think our minds kind of immediately jump to some conclusion. And sometimes it's good to take a step back and get the real facts. So we are going to be playing a little game of truth and false. We are going to be busting some myths that you all may have heard. So let's bring out our first question, and please put your answers in the chat. Let us know what you think based on your experience. So I hear this one a lot. If my contract was rescinded, I lost everything. Muhammad said he felt hopeless in that moment. I can understand how somebody might hear this and think that this is true, but what do we think, everybody? Is this true or false? I've lost everything. This is actually going to be false. So if you were thinking that this might be true, it might feel true because it might feel horrible, which is very understandable. It's like a big bomb has been dropped on you, but it's false. Your priority date may still be valid and can sometimes be reused. Okay, let's go to our next question. Your priority date can be recaptured and you can keep your place in line. So I see a few of you talking about keeping your place in line. Is this something that is possible? Is it true or is it false? I see some of you playing along in the chats. Thank you for playing along. Let's see. Is everybody going to get it right? True or false? Ed, Mohammed, Mark, what do you all think? True or false?
I'm going to say it's instead of true or false, it's usually. And the reason I say it's usually is that the priority date can be recaptured if you are I-140 approved and 6 months have passed. So if you're rescinded after that date, absolutely your priority date can be recaptured. If you're rescinded prior to that and your employer decides to not withdraw the petition, you will also be able to maintain the priority date. If for some reason they withdraw the petition and they don't allow it to be approved, then the answer is false. You cannot keep your place in line. So in most cases, the employers are sympathetic to the issue and they will not cancel the petition. They'll allow it to continue. So that's happening in probably 99% of the cases.
Okay, so we're going to go with true for that one. Your priority date can be recaptured and you can keep your place in line. So if you said true, you got that one correct. Okay, let's go to our next question. I can continue with immigration without a sponsor. So if you are rescinded, can you continue with the process if you don't have a sponsor? What do we think? Is this true or false? Mark, Mohammed, Ed, what do you all think?
Well, again, my answers aren't going to be yes and no. It's going to be the process will continue with immigration. However, it'll stop at a certain point. So without a sponsor, you are not able to go ahead and do certain things in there. So at some point, you'll be stalled if you don't have a sponsor.
You definitely need a sponsor to continue your petition. So that is false. So if at any time your sponsor withdraws, you definitely need a new sponsor. So I see Mark and Mohammed going like this. They agree. And let's bring up our last question, our last myth that we want to bust. No, or maybe that was it. Maybe that was the last one. Okay, so I see a lot of you playing along. Thank you for playing along with us today. We talk a lot about priority dates. And I want to take a minute to just take a step back and explain what that means. I want to go into it a little bit and why it matters. So Ed, can you explain to us what is a priority date? Why does it matter? Why do we keep talking about it so much?
Why does it matter? Why do we keep talking about it?
Okay. The priority date essentially is the time that you filed. When you file thereabouts at USCIS, you receive your petition, and you're establishing a date at that point. You're actually, that's your place in line. So if you think about it, anytime you're in line or long line, here in the United States, we'll say you go to Disney World, lines are like an hour long. If you leave, can you get back in the same place? And essentially you can. So if your sponsor withdraws, you can go ahead and maintain your same place in the queue, which is very important. And that's why it matters. You don't want to go ahead and have to start over. That date is very important, especially with a 3-year time frame. So if you're 1.5 years into it and your sponsor leaves, you're still at that 1.5 year mark, or if you're 2 years into it. And that's really important because of the investment of time that you have. You don't want to start over. If you did, that would be very, very discouraging. And it really isn't fair. So the government sets it up that you're allowed to recapture your date.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is your priority date is your place in line. And if you get rescinded by an employer, but you find a new sponsor, you can keep that place in line. That's why it's so important. Is that right, Ed?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so Mark, I want to turn to you. So in that moment when you heard that you were rescinded and it felt like a bomb had been dropped on you, when you found out that your priority date could be recaptured, how did that change things for you? How did that feel? And take yourself off mute there, Mark, so we can hear you. Okay, well, maybe while Mark is trying to get off mute there, Mohammed, same question to you. Can you tell us a little bit about how that felt? You said you felt hopeless in that moment when you found out that you were rescinded. How did it feel when you learned that your priority date, your place in line, could be recaptured? Looks like we have got some slow internet here today, everybody. It's Friday morning. It happens. Oh, there we go.
Like the first, yeah. So the first thing that happened, I got stuck in the process with retrogression. Then it came back, and I have been in the line. Then I got deployed. I got unemployment, and I got continued to process. So deployed, I thought that's it. I will not have any chance anymore. It's especially that like I thought that I forgot the priority date. Once the AMN contacted me and they said, no, that's not true. You can have your place in the line and we can continue with another employment. That's really, I felt like, oh my God, it's like I can continue on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm losing my priority date. I'm still in the line. I am in help, and I continued in the process on the same timeline. I didn't get delay in the process. I got recaptured and I got employer, and I had the interview and came with no delayment into process after recapturing. So it was really like all the luck happened at once, and it was like amazing feeling just to feel that nothing like happened or nothing affected my process, and that the guidance that I got, it's like amazing that everything was fast, finding new employer was fast, and just capturing everything was fast, and that was like amazing.
It's very inspiring to hear you talk about that, Mohammed, because I know I talk to a lot of nurses who have gone through something similar, and it can feel very scary in that moment when your plans for your life have changed and you thought you were going to be on one road and now you're forced to join another road. And to hear you say that it was a good experience and you felt supported and you were able to continue on with no delays is really music to my ears. And I'm so happy to hear that you're doing well where you are. And here you are in the US. You were able to recapture your priority date and you were able to still come and reach your American dream. So very inspiring to hear. Mark, I'm going to turn to you so that you can answer the same question. Can you tell us, how it felt when you learned? Oh, go ahead. Tell us how it felt when you learned that you could recapture your priority date and continue on your journey.
At first, it was really devastating Yeah, it was devastating at first, but I kept my head up. So the rescinded report given to me was on the last week of January. By February, EM reached out to me and they knew about my situation. So they've given me options. So I chose the staffing side, which was quick. By the month of March, I already got a new employer, which is the OGP. And by the way, OGP has a lot of client facilities which you can choose in whatever station you are at. And at the same time, fast forward, I had my interview by November 2024. And by December 2024, me and my family went straight to the United States.
Wow, that's
That's how
pretty
quick it
amazing,
was.
Mark. That's pretty amazing. I mean, hearing how it was devastating for you in that moment and you were able to turn that around and make that into a good experience and find a new employer so quickly. I think having some flexibility
Yes.
and getting immediately filed through OGP, through our staffing arm, was something that helped you to move quickly. So that's great to hear. So thank you for sharing both of your experiences, Mark and Mohammed. So I see we have. Oh, go ahead, Ed.
I was going to just jump in here. One of the things, again, they're very upset when they hear they're rescinded. They think they have to do a lot of things. We are the experts, and we are the one that's going to help you with that journey. The main thing we can do is we can market you, help you prepare your background, and market you to clients. So we have the access to a lot of clients. We will go ahead and market you and help find the job. The client would prefer to get somebody that's rescinded than somebody brand new that has to start a new petition. The reason for that is the brand new person has 3 years in the journey. You might have something less than that, 1.5 years, 2 years. So you're already ahead in the queue. So you get a priority with the clients on your placement. Again, partnering with a company like us helps you with that. If you're doing it on your own, you don't have that same opportunity to present yourself and access to the client. So I think, again, that's the benefit we have, whether we go with OGP, which is O'Grady Payton International, or Kinetics, which is the direct hire route of AMN Healthcare International. So marketing yourself, we take that big responsibility for you and find you the ideal fit.
Thank you, Ed. Good for everybody to keep in mind. If you're watching along and you have been a nurse who has been rescinded, or you know somebody who's been rescinded, as Ed said, we have a huge database between our two arms, our direct hire arm and our staffing arm, of many employers all across the United States. And if you decide that you would like to come to the US with us, we would love to help you on that journey. Just like Mark and Mohammed, you can apply on our website. That's amnhealthcare.com/international. So thank you for plugging that, Ed. I do see a question from JJ that I think is a good pivot for us. JJ is asking, how long does it take to recapture a priority date? So I think, taking a step back, we all understand a priority date is your place in line. But how does a recapture actually work? How does the timing work? What does that process look like? We're going to start talking about that next. But before we go there, we have a clip from one of our Onwards and Upwards partners, Chris Musello, who's an expert immigration attorney, talking about what the process is like to recapture your priority date and what that looks like. So let's go ahead and take a quick listen.
The recapturing of a priority date means that you had an I-140 filed for Company A, and that I-140 was actually approved, and now they no longer want to hire you, and or you don't want to hire them. You don't want to be employed by them. We always recommend that you get that in writing, that they are releasing you from any sort of contract or obligation you have to them. And then you file an I-140 for Company B. And when we would file an I-140 for Company B, we include a copy of the approval from the I-140 for Company A. And then when the I-140 for Company B is approved, even though that was filed much later, it will have a priority date on the Company B approval notice that will be backdated all the way to the one on Company A.
Okay, so that's just a little snippet from our once-a-month immigration shows. So if you have not checked out our immigration shows, I recommend you follow along. We give you updates on the visa bulletin, take your immigration questions live, and that is where that snippet is from. Ed, I'm going to turn to you. Can you walk us through a little bit of what a recapture looks like and how AMN supports our nurses through this journey?
Absolutely, I'd be glad to. With the recapture, the main thing is finding a new sponsor. So we talked about the two pathways. If you go with O'Grady Payne International, they are your sponsor. That can happen very quickly, and they can file typically within 30 days. If you go, there you go. Once you go ahead and have the sponsor, the petitioner and the attorney will request a new priority date being recaptured or a new I-140 being filed. They'll cite the earlier one as proof that it was refiled. They'll go ahead and secure your new date, and that will go ahead and preserve that. So you'll go ahead and have basically a new petition, and they'll have to go ahead and premium process that so that gets adjudicated within 15 days. So the whole process can happen very quickly if you have the right sponsor and the right knowledge to move you forward.
Okay, thank you, Ed. I think that's a good overview at a high level. You know, I think if you're watching along, it can also feel very confusing seeing a lot of this stuff, hearing a lot of these terms. We're here to support you. We want to make sure that you feel comfortable through this journey. You know, as Mohammed and Mark said, it can be very devastating. You can feel very hopeless when you hear that news. You can feel like your life is taking a turn and in a way you thought wasn't going to happen. And we want to help you navigate that. And as Ed has explained, we have that expertise. We've been doing this for 40 years. So we have seen a thing or two, and we know how to help our nurses navigate this journey. See Mark kind of going like this, so I think he agrees. So Mark and Mohammed, I see a question in the chat that is asking about how long it took to recapture a priority date. Of course, timelines will vary based on nurses, but I want to ask you both what it was like to go through this process and how quickly it moved for each of you. So Mark, let's turn to you first.
Yeah, like what I said, I just received my rescinded report by January of 2024. And
Let's
then
turn
got
to
recap
Mohammed.
password.
Oh, there we go. Okay, Mark is
Going
back.
back through this. Was
I
I
think
lost?
we're just having some
Okay.
slow internet connections this morning, but keep going, Mark.
Sorry. Yeah, back again. January, I had my rescind.
This is live,
me
everybody.
to
This
give
is
me
what happens on
options,
a
so I
live
chose
show.
staffing.
Sometimes we're dealing with some
And by
internet
March, I have a new employer or a new client offer. Yes, by
Okay.
March 2024, from January of the report, by March 2024, I have the new client facility offer. Every process went by, the DS260, the DQ process. Fast forward, going to the interview date, which is November, first week. And you will know that you have the visa already after the interview. If you get approved.
So
And
it
then
sounds
after
like
that,
Mark,
my family went here straight to the United States.
so I
So
you
that's my
cut in a
timeline.
little bit in and out, Mark, but it sounds like your process was fairly fast. Would you say that's right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Because
all
my
things
priority date was the same
Mm-hmm.
as that before when I was rescinded. So same. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, well, that's great to hear. So it sounds like it was a fairly fast process for Mark. He was able to get refiled quickly under our staffing arm, and he was able to come to the US. It sounds like within a matter of months. So that's wonderful for you, Mark. I'm very glad to hear it was a quick process. Mohammed, I want to turn to you. What role did AMN play in your recapture, and how did you feel supported by AMN throughout this process? And make sure to take yourself off mute so we can hear all your wise tips.
Yeah, sorry. So as I said, it's really was fast. So I really got out of retrogression. Then I got deployed, and I was like waiting my interview. Once I got deployed, I needed to capture fast before I get an interview. I think it did take a lot of time before I get recaptured. Like it took me maybe a month to find a new employer and maybe 2 months to get recaptured, and I got my I-140 again with the all the priority date. So I did to start my life. So it just went through. And I think after I got recaptured, maybe couple months, and I got the interview. So it's like everything happened at once. It was slow at the beginning, and at the end, it just like in 5, 6 months, everything happened at once. I got the employer, I got the recapturing, and I got the interview. So I'm telling you, be patient. Everything can happen in one day. So it's like I was in the beginning just saying when I will get there. It's taking too long. And when it started to happen, it just happened in no time. I courage and stay with the process and just information that you can ask me anytime. There's something in my mind, I just send an email and I get the reply where I am at, what's happening, what I need to do the next steps. So that's really kept me engaged with the process, and I really enjoyed it. After I came here, it's like it's all happened before for a reason.
Well, I didn't catch everything because it was a little bit of an unstable internet connection, but I did catch a few things that you said, Mohammed, that really stood out to me. I love how you said that when you would send a question, an email, you would get a reply right away. When you needed guidance, AMN was able to support you through that journey, and it was actually quite fast for you, which is awesome to hear. And now here you are in the US, and you stuck with the process. You had trust that it would work out. So I'm very happy to hear that. Ed, I see a couple of questions about getting recaptured. What qualifies somebody to go through a recapture? Can you talk a little bit about that?
The main thing with the recapture is finding the sponsor, because all you need to do is refile with a new petition. But if you think about it, to find the sponsor, again, you've got to have your skills at the right level. You've got to be marketable. So getting that right fit. The earlier petition must be approved. I mentioned that earlier. It has to be approved, and if it's not approved, we need to wait until it is approved. It's taking about almost, I want to say, 18 months to 2 years to get a petition approved. So depending on when your initial filing was, and the status has to be approved for them to go ahead and recapture that. Okay. And then there's no loss due to fraud or any misrepresentation. So you have to be in good status with the agency also. I did want to mention that, keep an eye on the visa bulletin, because if your priority date is before June 1st of 23, then that's highly marketable. Everything is a go. Everybody will push as quickly as possible. If you're after June 1st of 23, they can only process you up to a certain stage. You can't process beyond the DQ stage. So there is that two things we need to do is where you're at with the refiling and the recapture and your new petition, and where the visa bulletin is. And when the timing is right, your employer, the immigration team, and all the support staff at AMN International will push as quickly as possible to move you along.
Thank you, Ed. I see we are nearing our time, and I want to make sure that we're getting to some of these questions in the chat because I do see a lot of really good questions. So Ed, I'm going to turn to you for this question from Mervis. Thank you for asking this question. I think it's a really good one. Mervis is asking, is AMN still filing for I-140 applications to USCIS given the visa pause? So I think let's just generally ask, is AMN still filing I-140 applications?
Yeah, the answer is yes. The application is the beginning of the process. The pause is at the end. The main reason for the pause is to have proof that you can actually support yourself without going on to welfare. So they check banking and the financial things. The pause is totally independent of the application. We are still, in it for the long haul and aggressively recruiting and filing new applications every day.
There we go. There you have it, Mervis. Submit your application today. We would love to help you. And that first step is really getting that place in line, whether that's recapturing your priority date or establishing a new priority date. That comes with filing your immigration petition. So take that first step. So I do want to call out our referral bonus. So if you know someone who might qualify to be recaptured, like Mark and Mohammed, we're offering $1,000 for your referral. You can register now at the link in the chat, and you can get your own unique link, and you can start referring and earning that money. So we're going to drop that link in the chat. And we would love to have your referrals. We would love to help your friends through their journey. We have that expertise, that knowledge. We have that wide database of employers, and we would love to help bring you to the United States. So I want to make sure that we are talking about timelines, about who qualifies. We haven't got too much time left. But Ed, I want to touch on something that I think is very important. A few years ago, the landscapes look different. You and I have been doing this for a few years. We've seen things change. Mohammed, Mark, they've been waiting a few years. They've seen things change. At this point, it's very competitive. It's a very competitive landscape. And I want to talk about how can a nurse really stand out? How can they make themselves most marketable to U.S. employers? So Ed, I'm going to ask you to go through this for us.
Sure. It's very important that you're as marketable as possible. Obviously, if you don't pass the NCLEX, you can't be filed. That's one of the requirements for doing a filing. Certain specialties are in higher demand than others. So make sure that your specialty is clearly defined, that you also have a number of years, and that typically they look for 2 years in the core specialty. The different types of experience that you have, certain size hospitals, certain areas. One of the high demand areas is if you have experience in the Middle East or you have experience in higher technology environments, and if you have EMR experience. Those are the things that a lot of companies are looking for because they want to be able to have you start with minimal additional training. Current work experience in acute care settings. A lot of people are leaving the environment. They're finding another paying job and maybe something administrative. A lot of the employers want that current experience and acute care. So stay in that environment, even if you can find a higher paying job elsewhere, because that will give you more marketable skills. The type of qualifications, obviously, they look for the bachelor's degree mostly across all types, but diploma and associates are still being taken. And then English language, make sure you pass. If your English is pending, because you need English for visa screen, and sometimes you need it for some of the boards for your license, make sure you get that as soon as possible and that you have that checked off as complete.
Good advice there, Ed. I think in this current landscape, a lot of things are going to be outside of your control. So if you do experience a rescission, or somebody who experiences a rescission, a lot of that decision is not based on the nurse's performance. It's a lot of external factors that the nurse has nothing to do with, unfortunately, and it's just bad luck of the draw. But we just went through a list of things that you can do now. You can start working on now. This is how to make yourself the most marketable. This is how to take control of your own journey. So some good advice there, Ed. Thank you for sharing. So Mark and Mohammed, we are almost at time, and I want to make sure that you each have a moment to kind of give a final piece of advice to a nurse who might be going through something similar to you, may have experienced a rescission, maybe at a crossing, a turning point in their journey. What advice would you have? Mohammed, let's start with you.
Sorry, didn't catch the question again. Can you?
Yeah,
Can you
I
repeat?
just want to know, what advice would you give to a nurse who is experiencing a rescission, who might be at that turning point that you were at not too long ago? How would you tell them to stay inspired? How would you tell them to keep up with the journey?
Yeah. So first of all, I really encourage everybody just to stay engaged with the process. Don't just give up. Stay patient, and just do your part, and things gonna happen. It's just sometimes it's gonna be like hard. We wait over time, but it's gonna happen at the end. Just stay patient, stay engaged with the process, and ask any question you want. Like if you want something you are in doubt, if you need to prepare anything, and it's like keep your job, keep everything as like you're gonna go soon, because it's gonna happen in any moment, and just keep up and keep patience.
Thank you, Mohammed. I appreciate those wise words of advice. I think keep patient, stick with the process, and do what you can do. Those are all really wise pieces of advice for anybody who's watching along and feeling like, I'm not sure what to do next. So thank you for sharing. Mark, let's turn to you. You still there, Mark? I think Mark may have frozen. So Ed, I'm going to turn to you. What
Sure.
kind of piece of advice? You've heard nurses, you've talked to many nurses at this point who have now had all kinds of different journeys. What are you hearing among those who have been most successful and have stuck the course, have come to the US?
Hello.
What do you see as the best piece
Connection.
of advice there?
Yeah, I'm gonna make it simple. From my perspective, is keeping the goal in mind. You want to get the green card. You want to come to the US. So if you lose that vision, it's going to be harder for you. If you keep that up, the next most important thing is to go with a trusted partner, somebody that you can trust, that knows the process, that has the connections with facilities and hospitals that can get the jobs for you, and knows the immigration process. And again, I'm going to plug AMN International, whether it's O'Grady Payton or Kinetics. We have the expertise, so that takes a lot of the pressure off of you for your journey.
Thank you, Ed. I think that's very good advice. When you are going on this journey and you are considering moving, whether that's by yourself or with your whole family, I think number one, I love what Mohammed said about being patient and trusting in the process. And then number two, I love what Ed said about making sure that you're feeling comfortable and confident with the sponsor that you're coming to the US. And as AMN, we are the largest provider of both direct hire and staffing positions all across the United States. And we've been doing this for a long time. 40 years, guys. That's a long time. We've seen a thing or two. We know how to navigate this landscape. So we would love to help you. Mark, it looks like we got you back. So I want to give you a chance to give one final piece of advice for nurses who might be going through this journey. Let's see if we got you back or if you're frozen there.
Yes. Yes. To my fellow healthcare professionals looking forward to be recaptured, I'd say stay positive and yes, trust the process. Don't rely on quick schemes. It's worth the wait. Just keep pushing.
Okay.
Keep moving forward, and at the same time, add experience. And you're on the right path, just like I was. They will help your struggles turn into triumph. So I know for sure you'll be sharing your own success stories very much soon. As I've always said at these live events or live shows like this, a rescinded journey is just a comma. It's not a period. So see you soon in the land flowing with milk and honey.
I love that, Mark. You know, I caught every maybe third word, but I did catch some really important words where you said AMN will help you turn your struggles into triumph. And then we saw that background of your family at Disneyland. And I love that. I think that really sums up what we're all trying to do. I think that really sums up what Ed and I try to do daily. We really want to help you come to the US. We want to help you flourish. We want to help you succeed, just like Mark and Mohammed are doing now. And I love seeing the family pictures of both of you exploring the US, living your life, living that American dream. So thank you both for being on here today. And thank you, Ed, for sharing your expertise. It was great to have everybody on talking about a topic that I think can almost feel a little bit taboo, but is something that is happening now and is important to have that knowledge and that power of how to move forward, how to, as Mark said, turn a struggle into triumph. And we would love to help you on that journey. So once again, that link to apply to AMN is amnhealthcare.com/international. And our recruiters are on hand, ready and waiting to help you reach your American dream, just like Mark and Mohammed. Thank you, Ed, Mark, and Mohammed, for being here with us today and taking all of our questions. We loved hearing your stories and loved hearing all of your advice. Let's bring up our schedule for the next month on our Onwards and Upwards shows so that we can see what we have upcoming. So we have our immigration Q&A on February 21st at 7 a.m. I see a lot of questions in this chat asking about when we think you might be current, getting approvals for different documents. This is a great time to ask those questions at this immigration Q&A. We have expert attorneys who come on and will be taking your questions live. This is free advice, everybody. So please feel free to join, and we will be giving you the latest visa bulletin update. We also have our podcast. Or we also have our, there we go. We also have our podcast, Nursing in America. We have new podcast episodes available, so make sure to check those out. And we also have our AMN Academy shows. These are shows that are on Mondays. Let's bring up that graphic to see what our shows are upcoming. We have our Monday shows, 5 a.m. California time, with our partner 9.09er. And then we have our Dream Job segment with Deirdre, who is our Director of Recruitment. And we're going to be talking about all the different positions available through AMN. And I just want to call your attention to our referral bonus one more time. So if you want to earn a little bit of extra cash, refer a friend and earn $1,000. We're going to drop that link in the chat and you will get your own unique link. There are some conditions. Your friend needs to have passed the NCLEX. There are some conditions that they need to meet, but this is a great way to earn some extra money. So thank you all so much for joining us here today. I still see some questions coming in about the immigration process. Please join our immigration Q&A with our expert attorneys. They will be able to take these questions live and give you the best free advice. And who doesn't love free advice, everybody? So thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for your thoughtful questions. I hope you feel inspired by Mark and Mohammed's journeys, and we would love to see you in the United States. Thank you, everybody. Onwards and upwards. Bye-bye.